Welcome. Hello.
Hello. Hello, hello, hello.
All right. We're speaking
Welcome
English.
back. I hope you had a nice lunch. And it's my privilege to announce someone I also know since many, many years, but who is not so well known in the Neos community, I think, at least by name. And Timo wrote us that he likes to eat and sleep. And repeat as well, which I totally can relate to. It's great. And it also ties nicely into being a fellow cat person, because that's kind of what cats do. And it's just a great way of life. So have fun with Timo.
And please don't forget to submit your questions for some interactive fun at the end of the talk. The stage is yours, Timo.
Oh, thanks a lot. So, can you please switch? Sorry, thanks. So, hello everybody. Welcome to my talk, profiting from Neos on Flow for other projects, or how Neos helped me to be a better dev. That doesn't mean that I'm a godlike dev. That only means that Neos helped me to broaden my knowledge. And that's enough. Before we start, we should know more about one another. So, how many of you are using the Symfony framework? Just raise your hand. You can stand up. You can do whatever you're feeling comfortable with. Okay, 4 or 5 persons. Not bad. How many of you are using the Laravel framework? Come on, sorry. Normally I would say nobody. I'm on the right conference. But now there are 2 people that use Laravel, but that's okay. A good friend told me, if you're smart and you like pain, you should use Cake PHP. I'm definitely not smart and I don't like pain. But I use Cake PHP. Not because I want to, but because I have to. Who among you uses Cake PHP too? Poor voice, sorry. I prepared a small introduction video for you, so sit back and enjoy the show. The connection. Hopefully it works. If not, we can switch. So the music you listened to was from my band Remember Twilight. We have played around 200 or 300 concerts all over Europe. So I'm not really afraid to perform in front of an audience. Hopefully it comes across that way. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know. I know the different steps or the sequence like the back of my hand. Arrive at the location, search for the host. Hopefully you get your backstage pass and have access to all areas. That's a really important thing. And If you're lucky, you get a small sound check or a light check or something like that. And all of this for half an hour of glory on stage. This concept or sequence is also called schema. On the top left, you see Jean Piaget. He has done a lot of research of cognitive development, especially on children. You see here one of his main theories. Our current knowledge, or our short-term memory, is filled up with a lot of different schemas. We already know that the schema is something like a concept or preset. When you're faced with a new situation that is fitting into an existing schema, let's say a familiar situation, you only have to extend the schema. You see it on the left in green. When you're faced to a new experience that is very, very different from what you have encountered before, let's say a unfamiliar situation, you have to create or build a new schema. Let's delve a little bit deeper in the theory. Let's look at two examples. I already understand if-else. I encountered else-if for the first time. If, else, and else-if are control structures, so that I can use the same schema and update it with a new information. Second example. Some years ago, a framework called Laravel crossed my path. I bought a book. Laravel, yes, it's for you now, this example. I bought a book, read a little bit in the documentation, and they talk about Eloquent always as it is an object relational mapper. In retrospect, I wonder if that was a marketing ploy, but I believed until a Java developer shattered my illusion. He came around with the active record pattern. I thought Doctrine and Eloquent are object relational mappers. But with this new information, I realized that they are not compatible. Therefore, I created a new schema. Our goal for today is to fill up your personal schema storage a little bit. If you walk out of this talk, you should have learned at least one new schema. Otherwise, I failed, and you should lecture here. And there are two small things we should look at before we begin. We still have to figure out the connection between the schemas and our brain. Most of the fastest database engines try to store everything in their short-term memory, like Elasticsearch or perhaps also MongoDB. Our brain works differently. George Miller found that we can only hold up to 7 elements at once in our short-term memory. Therefore, we should try to store everything in our long-term memory. Okay, but what is the advantage of putting everything in our long-term memory? Any ideas? Somebody? An idea? What's the advantage? Yeah? It's on you, Patrick? You can use it. That's really cool. If we load one schema of our long-term memory, it only blocks one element of our short-term memory. The schema itself tells you a lot of details and information, like schema, arrive at a location, search for the host, and so on and so forth. Let's try holding different individual letters in our short-term memory. That's really, really difficult. Up to all slots of our short-term memory are blocked. Let's start a small experiment about that. We need a volunteer. Oh, no, we just have one. Please welcome on stage my colleague, Marco. So the experiment itself, it's very, very, very easy. We want to find out how many different letters this guy can store in his short-term memory. We start with 7 letters, increase to 14 letters, and end up with more than 20 letters. Do you have any questions? You feel comfortable here? You need a coffee, something to drink, or? All good. All good. Okay. Let's start with the new letter, with the first letters. You have 5 seconds to remember these letters. Oh, sorry, it's on this one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Could you please repeat these letters for us? Is this right? Yes. Cool. Same procedure again, now with 14 letters. Now it's getting really easy, okay? 5 seconds again for you. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Okay, well done. So let's start the last trial, because I mean that was really easy. Sorry, I have to. Okay. Can you please fix it? Ah, perfect. Our newborn stagehand Marco. No, so it's too much thing. So you have 3 seconds to remember these letters. 3, 2, 1. Okay, are you able to repeat these letters?
Yes. A, B, C, D, E. German is easier. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, W, X, Y, Z.
Yeah, perfect. That's a schema. And that's the alphabet. It tells us a lot of details, like we have 26 letters, and there's a sequence, A is before B, and so on and so on. I think you got it. A big round of applause for my beautiful assistant, Marco. I think, hopefully that works well. Yeah. So why naming matters? Can you assist me, please? Or I have broken everything again, right? Oh, so sorry.
Ich will es dir einfach abnehmen.
Ja, ja. Das hier. Oh, that's cool. It feels better. Yeah, what's this? The hairs are so thick. Yes. Huh? Okay. Why naming matters? There are a lot of books about domain-driven design on the market. For example, the Blue Book by Eric Evans. And these books have one thing in common. The first chapter is always about the ubiquitous language. I have seen projects where the class names were written in German, and that's a common approach in domain-driven design. But why this is important? Well, perhaps you heard about the Tower of Babel. They wanted to build a tower with its top in the sky. At the beginning, they made great progress. Jehovah wanted to slow them down, so he separated them with language, so they could no longer understand each other. Dealing with code is quite similar. We have to speak the same language. In the beginning, I told you that Neos, there's nothing to laugh at the moment, yeah? I told you that Neos helped me to be a better dev. But what makes the difference? I was on some PHP meetups in Stuttgart a long time ago. In the eyes of the Send framework developers, I, as a typo 3 dev, was a low-code developer, an underdog who you should not pay any more attention to. But typo 3 was an idea, not a framework. An idea that had laid to the foundation of Neos. The idea starts on the point on which the other framework stops to think, because PHP frameworks, they do not consider it at their core domain. Neos fills the gaps between real-world problems and PHP frameworks with a lot of interesting approaches. If I had to compare it with domain-driven design and the Onion architecture, in my mindset, the PHP frameworks are definitely located in the application layer. But the concept of Neos would be crossed the border to the domain layer. Of course, a really daring thesis, and I can laugh about it. That's fine for me. For this reason, you can learn a lot of new schema. That's what we're going to do now. I have changed my job around 5 years ago. Now I develop a container shipping app that handles logistics between China and Europe and China and the US. We have to use the Symfony framework. Out of the box, Symfony uses one repository or one main repository. Let's start to map out Neos flow a little bit. At first glance, we see that the vendor folder moved to the framework and libraries folder here. In the application folder, that's here, I have put my Rocket app, my Fuel app, and my Hospital app. These apps are something like bundles or modules, something like that. Flow is able to handle these bundles or these modules right away. I ask myself, how do I have to change Symfony so that it's also capable of handling bundles in different repositories? Or can Symfony already handle them? Someone an idea? Can Symfony already handle bundles? Cool. Then it makes sense to explain it. So, I tried out different ways to handle bundles with Symfony. First way was a directory way. I put my Rocket app, my Fuel app, and my beloved Hospital app in the source folder of Symfony. Yeah. I separated them with directories. So the Rocket app is a directory, the Fuel app and the Hospital app is a directory too. So, but everything is still in my main repository. Okay. Is the Rocket app really a bundle now? Is it really a bundle now? Is it reusable? Any ideas? No, not really. At the end, my bundles are only directories. I separated them with directory, and at the end, they're only directories, nothing else. Time for the next trial. I call it the Symfony way. Symfony has a built-in bundle system. Of course, I mean, Symfony is a really, really big framework, and of course, Symfony has a built-in bundle system. So I could create my different apps as Symfony bundles. These bundles would then be in different repositories. I can come back to my previous question now. Can Symfony handle bundles? Yes, of course it can. Am I happy with the approach? Well, not really. Everything is placed in the vendor folder. And I definitely want to hold business logic in this folder. Time for the last trial. I called it the composer or the Neos way, and that's out of flow, to be honest. With a script in composer's terms can be a PHP callback defined as a static method. With an installer script, we can move repositories to a different place. Well, I have both now. Handle bundles and hold the business logic in the right place. That was for me the way to go. I had a workshop with Robert in Lübeck around 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I'm not really sure. It is worth visiting him just for the espresso, but please don't tell it to him because it's a secret, a really, really good one. In the workshop, we wanted to create a concept for migrating a publishing software app from Typo 3 to Flow. I was one of the early Flow adopters. After some time, we talk about the menu of the app. His idea was to build the menu with interfaces. For me, at that time, that was totally new. Never heard about something like that. With Flow, you can get all classes for an interface. For example, you can get all controller here that implements the menu-aware interface. At the end, each controller represents one menu item. We know about the Flow reflection service now, and we built an interface with it. But what is a good use case for it in Symfony? With Flow, you are in the comfortable position to load your settings, or all your settings, with property injection. With Symfony, you are in the comfortable position of not being able to load any settings at all. And I'm talking about settings, not configurations. And now, well, if you're using PHP files to hold your settings, you can use the reflection service again. You just have to add the same interface to all of your settings classes. Then you're able to get all classes for this interface again. Sometimes the sequence of loading matters, and it's something out of Flow. There's a lot of loading order. You can extend it with the loading order, like here, prioritize 5, 10, whatever, and prioritize them. In the end, you're able to store everything in a settings trouble. Oh, next one. The Symfony Messenger, oh yeah. The Symfony, do anybody know the Symfony Messenger in Deep? Have worked with it? You're blessed, I can tell you. You're really, really blessed, because the Symfony Messenger is one of the biggest components of Symfony. It's coupled deeply to the core. That's a really beast. You are able to dispatch a message and consume it immediately or afterward. It's delivered with a lot of different transports, like here you see RabbitMQ or Doctrine, to name 2 of them. The messenger uses the fully qualified namespace of the message to address the right consumer. The namespace is unique and cannot be mistaken. Okay, this information is held in the metadata of the message. As long as you are using not a distributed architecture, you're in a safe harbor. Otherwise, things can get really complicated. The fully qualified namespace is a platform-specific identifier. Do we really want a platform-specific identifier in a distributed architecture? Do we really want something like a namespace? Any ideas? Mimi, that's your topic. And of course not. If we use a platform-independent identifier, how can we find the right message consumer in a different application? We can use the reflection service as a resolver here again. The rest should be self-explanatory. Understandable or not understandable? Okay, understandable. No, you have a message with a fully qualified namespace, and the problem is he used the fully qualified namespace as to find the right consumer. And if you have a different application in a distributed architecture, then you always the namespace must always be the same, and that's normally not the case. And that's how Symfony works. Yeah. But you can use reflections to find the right message consumer, and you cut at the end. You don't store the namespace anymore. You only store a class name, and then use a resolver in the different application to find the right consumer. Flow provides a sorter that is able to sort an array according to a position in the metadata. You remember my last talk about event sourcing? in the Neos conference last year. Everybody was there, right? Yeah. In this talk, I mapped out Symfony a little bit. It's easier to use a component in a different framework if it is less coupled. The array sorter is made with pure PHP, so it has no dependencies to the Flow framework. We can use it out of the box. In my use case, I had a lot of different user groups. I created the source property of Elasticsearch with its help. Therefore, I didn't have to edit the result further, but could send it directly to the front end. That's really, really powerful. In Symfony, you don't have a resource management like in Flow. You have the uploaded file on your hand, but you are responsible for the rest. For this reason, I dive back into Flow a little bit and search for a good solution. Git uses the SHA-1 hash algorithm to create checksums. The checksum algorithm converts data into a simple number. The same data always leads to the same checksum. Changing something in the data would change the checksum too. But what does this have to do with our resource management? Well, Flow uses the SHA-1 file functions, and that the core developer knows better than me, to store the checksum of a file. Moreover, they create a nested structure with the hash. A nested directory structure, you see it on the right. One of the reasons were the performance problems in older file systems, like the second extended file system, for example. I also find it clearer. I created my own resource management in Symfony based on the concepts of Flow. I put it in the source folder. I'm going to repeat it. I put it in the source folder, in the folder of my main repository. You can imagine why that was such a stupid idea, and my colleagues hate me for doing this a little bit. So the dramaturgy must be at its highest at the end. Therefore, each band plays one of their best songs at that time. But today I will definitely give not an encore, but you still get event sourcing. Event sourcing is a pattern for storing data as events in an append-only log. Alexei from Event Store called it one of the simplest patterns to learn. Do you agree with Alexei, event sourcing? I mean, you have a state and an incoming event, and the incoming event changes the state. That's all. That's event sourcing. That seems to be easy, right? But where to start? Hopefully, your bank advisor will soon be making another house call. It's time to use this state wisely. For example, he can explain to you the basics of accounting. After that, you have the knowledge to start directly with event sourcing. Really easy. Neos provides two packages for it, Neos Event Store and the Event Store Doctrine Adapter. For our shipping container app, we use event sourcing based on the concepts of Flow and Neos at the end. On the voyage of a ship over the ocean, a lot of different milestones must be passed. Loading in China, pirates, that helps you to unload your container sometimes a little bit, and unloading, to name some of them. These different milestones are held in this beautiful graph here on the bottom. We have to handle millions of events. We scale at the moment with 8 workers, and hopefully that's enough. Load and stress testing is about to start. The plan is to go to production in 2 years, around 2 years, 2-3 years. That's the plan at the moment. I will keep you updated. If you think cake PHP causes pain, then imagine how much pain my English teacher here had to suffer hearing this talk 1,000 times. A small joke for the end. And thank you very much.
Can you vergessen?
Thank you, Timo, for this interesting talk. And we don't have any questions right now, so maybe if someone has spontaneous questions. Otherwise, I would ask if you could give us a brief summary of what you think we should take away from this.
What I think?
Yeah, what you want us to take away
That's why
from
you're
your
here.
talk.
We care about what you think, yes.
Right,
Yes,
okay.
we kind of care about what you
friendly.
think.
No, for me, I had a discussion with Sebastian about, because I have done a lot of Neos Flow development a long time ago, and now I have to do all the Symfony stuff. And for me, it's when I talk to my boss or something else, we think about what's a good thing that junior developer come into good developing stuff, or how can we help them to understand concepts and something like that. And I started with Flow, and then later Symfony and Laravel and all this other stuff. But Flow, the good thing is there are so many abstractions and so many different concepts. That's PHP frameworks end on one level, but Neos sat on top of it. A lot of interesting patterns. And that's what helped me a lot in my daily work with Symfony, because Symfony don't provide you these patterns or these ideas or this whatever. There is nothing. And so I told my boss, yeah, perhaps it's better to start with Flow, and then you can do everything. But that's not because I'm on a Flow conference, because I'm working with Symfony. But it's only to understand there are so many abstraction layers. And it's so important to learn these abstraction layers. Then you can do everything else. And so I think it's really good to start with Flow, and then you can do everything what you want.
That's cool. I think that's a great takeaway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember to rate the talk. I'm going to say this every single time. And thank you so much.
You too.
And we'll see you here. I can take this off your hand if you would want me to. We will see you here in 15 minutes, half an hour. We have so much time for another quick break. And we'll see you back here or down there for the next sessions. Thank you.
Aber die Zeit falsch.
Alles gut. Alles gut.